Hey everyone, it's your average chess player here. Today we are going to look at this endgame position. It is White's turn to play and we have to try and find the winning move and continuation for White. So pause the video here and try to find the solution yourself. Feel free to skip ahead to the solution part of the video if you want to verify your calculation or just want to know how this position is solved. I'm gonna go through a few endgame guidelines that I learned recently, and I even used that in one of my previous videos that I posted recently. And I'm gonna just recap them, and I'm gonna show you how I applied that to solve this endgame. So we're not gonna be looking into like deep calculations here. We're just gonna apply endgame fundamental guidelines or principles, and try to solve this endgame as fast as possible. So the first guideline is on opposition. So there are like three types of opposition: direct, indirect, and distant, you could say. So right now we have an indirect opposition with the black king. Direct would be like if you're just separated by one square. Right now we are separated by three squares. So the first guideline is that if there's an odd number of squares between the two kings, and it is not your and it is your opponent's turn to play, then you have the opposition. Okay, I'll repeat that. If you have an odd number of squares between you and the opponent's king, and it's your opponent's turn to play, then you have the opposition. So in this case, it is an odd number of squares, but it is White's turn to play, like I said, so which is our turn, and we do not have the opposition. Black has the opposition now, and we have to try and get the opposition. So that is one. So odd number of squares. The second guideline is if there are an even number of squares between the two kings and it is our turn to play, then we have the opposition. So there will be positions that would come up where if black makes a certain move, we can seize the opposition by putting an even number. If we make a certain move and black makes a move where there are even number of squares in between us, then we will get the opposition. So you'll see. But that is the main guideline that you have to remember. So just going by that, if we make a move like king d6, black can play king b6, and it is an odd number of squares and it's direct opposition to, and it is our turn to play, so we don't have the opposition. Black has the opposition because of the odd number of squares. If we play a move like king e6, black would not play king b6 because it's an even number of squares and it's our turn to play. So we have the opposition. So black will be losing automatically in that kind of an endgame. Black instead will play king a6, trying to maintain the odd number of squares in between the two kings. And since it's our turn to play, we lose the opposition and black can kind of draw this game. So we already know all this now. So, and if you make a move like king f6, you want to guess what black would play? Not king a6, but king b6. Again, maintaining that odd number of squares and seizing the opposition. So, which leaves us with this move, king f5. And the move king f5 will work here because black would love to play king b5 to maintain the opposition, but black cannot do that because the b5 square is taken away. So black would have to settle for a move like king a6 or king b6. Again, in this video, I'm going to just pick like one or maybe two variations at most, but any move that black makes, just by applying these guidelines, you could figure out White's response and still end up in the same positions that we see in the video, and we win. For example, king b6, the variation I want to cover, but if you want to play, black plays king a6, you want to, just by applying the guideline, we know the right move is just king e6 here. We put in an odd number of squares between us and the king, black king, and black's turn to play, so we have the opposition. So black plays king b6, applying the same thing, king f6, three squares, odd numbers, black's turn to play, we have the opposition. Now black plays king b7, we know what to do, king f7, again keep maintaining the same sequence, set of squares. And now black plays king b6. Here we kind of reach a fork in the road. A move like king f6, we go back to the same endgame that we had. A move like king e7, black can play king a7, maintaining odd number of squares in between. Note that king c7 is actually losing for black, although it is like the king is separate, like the two kings are separated by an odd number of squares, and it's white's turn to play. And the main reason is, if white plays king e6 here, black cannot play king c6 because the pawn is blocking the way, and black will be forced to move around like this, and white will come into this position. And this is kind of the same endgame that we're going to see in the variation that I wanted to show. But this is just an example that all the variations would kind of transpose into something like what we saw just now. So black here played king b6. Here, like I said, king e7 doesn't work after king a7, and black now sees its opposition, can like kind of mirror whatever white is doing, can do something like this, and there's really no way to get through this. And if you play king f6, we go back into the same position just to move back. And the move king f8, black can play king b7, king f7, king b6, and we kind of reach the same position. So which leaves us with this move, king e8. And king e8 is actually the winning continuation in the sequence. And the reason being, black, again, is kind of in a zugzwang. Like, whatever black plays, let's say black plays king a7, we know how to take opposition here. Black is still trying to gain some kind of a distant opposition. But we can just play a move like king e7 and again maintain that odd number of squares. Black's turn to play. Black can try king a8, and now we have to see how to like go forward and make the right sequence of moves here. Now we can we have to make the move king d6 here, and we will quickly see why other moves would fail, and we'll know because of the guidelines. So if I play king d8, it's an even number of squares, and it's black's turn to play, and black can just simply play king b8. We already lost the opposition here, and now black is seizing the opposition, direct opposition, because it's our turn to play and it's odd number of squares. And if you play something like king e8, it goes back to these kind of the same position, so we don't want to do that. And if we play king f6, again, we're kind of not making progress, although we might be in opposition there. The move that we want to make is like something like king d6. King e6 would also work, I suppose, because we would, but we kind of run into the same like endgame position. So I don't want to do that. That's why I want to play king d6, kind of forcing black's hand here and attacking this pawn. After king b7, king d7, right? King to b6. Now, not king, like we can go to king d6, but we'll be running into the same sequence of moves, but rather king c8. And this is the same thing that we saw like with the variation where of king e7 and king c7 just a few moves back, where black had to play king a7 to draw. So king to c8, and now black is out of moves. These two squares are taken away by the white king, and black cannot play king b5 to stick to this pawn, and c5 is also taken by his own pawn. So black really doesn't have a move. Let's say king a6, king c7, king a7, takes. Now white just has cleaned up all the pawns, and from here it is an elementary way to queen the pawn, and then we get a queen on the board, and we can clean up this pawn if we want, or just simply checkmate the black king with just the king and queen, whatever you prefer. And that's the endgame. A simple endgame which really nails the fundamental concepts of, you could say, direct opposition, indirect and distant opposition. We're gonna go all the way back, and yeah, if you skipped ahead to this part of the video, here's the solution for you. In this position, white does not have the opposition because there are an odd number of squares between the two kings, and it's white's turn to play. So white has to play this move, king f5, trying to gain some kind of a distant opposition, because black cannot play king b5 to seize the opposition black. So black is going to play let's say king b6. We play king f6, maintaining the odd number of squares and maintaining the opposition. After king b7, we mirror that to keep the same thing. After king b6 again, we don't play king f6 because it's just a repetition. Instead, we play king e8. And black is, whatever black plays, black will still lose here. After king a7, not king d8 or king d7, because that will result in a loss of the opposition. We play king e7, maintaining the odd number of squares. After king a8, king d6, attacking this pawn, king b7 and king so king b7 and king d7, king b6, king c8. Now we are kind of outflanking the black king, and king cannot no longer support this pawn and has to step away, because all the squares are taken by its own pawns, or we are taking away a square in this case. After king c7, we just grab these two pawns and start pushing our own pawn, eventually queen, and this will result in a checkmate soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. Catch you guys in the next one.